I really wanted to hear what is out there, because one thing is like seeing water,
Yeah.
but then, immediately when you're under the waves, lots of things which we take them for granted are changing.
Hello, everybody. This is Victoria Vesna, and you're tuned in to Vibrations Matter. Today, it's my pleasure to introduce Robertina Šebjanič, who's tuning in from Ljubljana. And we're going to talk about her journey into diving into oceans, seas, rivers, and listening, recording, and exposing sounds of all the creatures under the waters and all the man-made noise that disturbs these environments. Let's hear Robertina. Let's dive in with her. Hi, Robertina.
Hey,
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
So
You?
you're tuning in from Ljubljana?
Yes, I just
Or
arrived back to Ljubljana.
just arrived back, exactly.
I was for a few weeks now, mostly at Rijeka, Pula, and that part of the Adriatic Sea, building up new piece and exhibited it. And yeah,
Oh, you installed a new piece.
yeah, just
What's
last week. And we had
what's
the symposium, and it was like the whole thing. So yeah,
wow. So what's the name of the new piece?
it's Adriatic Echoes of Abyss, and the topic is not the easy topic, but it's topic that I think it has to be spoke about. It's about the sunken military waste, military ammunition from First World War, Second World War, all different conflicts and so on, which are in different parts of oceans worldwide, but specifically the piece which I'm showing now deals with the topics about the Adriatic Sea, and it's also slightly connecting to my previous work on this, which was mostly dealing with the Baltic Sea.
So how did you track these devices, bombs that were deep under the sea? How did you do that?
I didn't manage to do it by myself. Of course,
Well,
it's like
clearly. I can't imagine you renting a submarine and
well, it would be fun to
it's
do.
possible. It's possible. Who knows?
Everything is possible, but there is always some limitations. No, actually, I think we chatted about this a while ago, but when I was in 2023 in Baltic Sea on a research vessel Tara, my topic, which I applied to be part of that research vessel as an artist in residence, was actually this topic of the sunken munition, and I did really read into it what are the differences between the chemical munitions and different kind of munitions which was dropped into the sea. And Baltic Sea was really interesting starting ground for this kind of research or project, because after the World War II, they dropped everything which was like leftovers from the German army into the Baltic Sea. So during my stay at Tara, at this research vessel, I met some scientists from Poland, like established people as Dr. Jacek Beldowski and his colleagues like Miloš Grabnowski and so on, which they are working since last 10 or 15 years, I would say, deliberately on knowledge and research on what is happening on this basis in the Baltic Sea. And then through them, I also got to know Dr. Matthias Brenner from Bennerhavel University, which speaks about the North Sea. But then when I started to do the research about what is happening with this in the topics of the Adriatic Sea, there have been some constraints because there is not big research done on this yet. So my new collaborators have been actually special police forces.
Oh, wow.
In
Wow.
Kvarner region, because they have a polygon which was actually the main visualization, which I saw within this new project, where the people like pyrotechnical divers or divers, which are pyrotechnics or both, come and do training in these kind of areas. Because, if they're trained and if they understand, because when you swim, when you dive, you can see many different objects, and sometimes you can mix them, or it's really hard sometimes to understand what are you seeing, because the
Right.
beauty of the marine life, it is that it regrows. And I'm pretty sure we will speak about today about this resilience of the oceans also, no?
Yes,
Even though the
beautiful.
humans, we like to put pressure on this resilience, we are like pushing the boundaries of how far it can go. So in the sea, when you are, all this is regrown, so it's really sometimes hard to see. And every sea or every ocean has its own physicalities. Like the sea which we are dripped in, what we have around us, this pristine, beautiful, it's actually Pacific, which I choose for us to swim inside this talk. But, not always visibility is possible, big, or, very quickly we come into the darkness and so on. So there's lots of things to unveil with that. But just as a starting ground, I'm just coming from that, we just opened the exhibition. The work how represented, it was actually through the carpet. So I have a carpet and some videos on it.
Oh, wow.
And
Interesting.
it's just like rethinking also different materialities, so through touch or through different sensory perception, we can trigger different way of seeing and caring about the ocean.
So take me back all the way to your childhood and maybe earlier or later when you had this kind of moment with the sea or the ocean or a sound or something that started your path on it, whether it was conscious or unconscious. What was it? What was the kind of light bulb moment where you went, oh, wow, I want to go deeper into this? What was it?
This kind of wonder was definitely always when we went with my family, because I was growing up in ex-Yugoslavia territory in Republic of Slovenia. And we always went to the seaside, to the Croatian, mostly it was Croatian seaside, Istria, to the city of Rovinj. And yeah, this was like always my favorite time in the year, to come to the seaside and just to be at the shores. Because the beauty of this Croatian Adriatic shores on this side of Adriatic in Croatian/Slovenian side is that it's very rocky. So instead of these rocks, there's lots of animals, I know that I could spend hours like just hanging around and looking at little crabs walking around and so on. So there's lots of animals there. Because, on the Italian side, the Adriatic is very different. It's mostly beach, sand beaches.
Yes, completely different and much more industrial too.
Also,
Yeah.
and yeah, so being there and just like exploring this kind of beauty, it kind of stayed with me, I think. So it was like always collections of stones and shells coming back with me. It was big ones, I would say, every year. And then also because, like born in the continent, I'm coming from Pannonia. So there was still this kind of like Pannonia has this kind of it's a flat land.
Yeah.
So I think this flatness of the landscape and the big sky, I call it, it's like somehow connected to it also. That it somehow resonates with me with years when I started to think about it. Why, It's like because at the oceans, you have the same kind of this flatness and the big sky. And it's similar thing also with the Pannonian belt.
And Robin is so beautiful. It's such a gorgeous, gorgeous Mediterranean town. It's really full of history. If you dive in the same place now, how different is it from your childhood memory?
Well, you know, it's like, it's always changing, I would say, you know. I would not, you know, because Adriatic is quite vivid, you know, there is still quite lots of animal life visible from the shores very quickly, you know. So it's not like in the Baltic where it's a bit less animals living. So I perceive it quite similar in the way that, you know, like coming back and back to the shores, of course, the touristic industry changed it, of course, you know, and it's very present.
Yes.
More and more people, which, you know, we all like to enjoy the beauty of the sea, you know. So I wouldn't say it changed so drastically, but then, you know, when I started to do the research and started to look into scientific data and understanding more what these kind of changes are meaning and how, like, 1 degree of change in the warmth of the sea could reshape so many different lives. Then I realized that maybe the change is much more present, you know. There is definitely more of the comb-fish, which is like species which is not native in the Adriatic, you know, is the comb jellyfish. And there is bigger and bigger swarms of them, which, you know, for the leisure/tourism, they're not the most popular animals because, of course, people don't feel comfortable to swim with them, even though they are not stingy or something, you know, they will not
Yeah.
do nothing to you, but just like this kind of territorial, you know, how we are, you know, like we like to enjoy the sea with the animals because through this we kind of are sure that this is vivid still. But then on the other hand, if the life which we didn't choose, you know, which is not like
Right.
the
It's
panda,
not curated.
not curated in the way how we'd love to. So that's kind of something that I also like to explore in my work in general. I think, Victoria, you also know the
Absolutely. I totally relate to you, as you know, and the beauty of the Adriatic and the kind of heartbreaking knowledge that it's under so much threat, actually. So maybe not obvious, and that makes it even worse in a way. So when did you dip in the microphone and start recording and thinking of sound in relation to the Adriatic or just water in general?
my first experiments into hydrophones, they have been actually when I started to build them by myself. And I was just doing simple hydrophones with the piezo speakers and goods.
But why did you start building them? What prompted that?
I really wanted to hear what is out there, you know, because one thing is like seeing and perceiving the water, but then, you know, immediately when you're under the waves, lots of things which we take them for granted are changing. And this kind of otherness of this watery sonic representation, you know, I heard few experimental works and I was really curious to hear more. And I really wanted to do more. So first it was this kind of more experimental things. This I did actually on the Donau River. I was like resident at Stadtwerkstatt and presented these first experiments actually during one of my first Ars Electronica festivals. And then I was a bit longer at Marine Station in Roscoff in France, in Brittany. It's at Atlantic shore on residency. And there I managed to get my hands on a bit more professional equipment for listening underwaters. Because, you know, in the beginning, mostly it started with the naive curiosity that I will listen to the fish. But then the fish, of course, didn't came to sing to my hydrophone. It was mostly what I heard. It was human presence, like boats and machinery. And now with years, I learned, and I know that you can also hear the animals, and I know where and so on. But it took a full circle from this kind of going away from all this noisiness of the sea into this kind of, because, you know, the idea was the serenity, but the serenity comes after, you know, first is like the human presence is very here. And I think this was also when me and you met for the first time, when we started to exchange about our research. I think I was just like finishing up my album, Aquatocene,
That's
which is
right.
about an underwater noise pollution. And you have
Yes.
just working on the noise
Noise
aquarium
aquarium. Yeah.
project in Vienna. So through this, you have been a lot here in region also. So I remember that first meetups when we have been and exchanging the information and details and so on. So yeah, and this is
Yeah, I mean,
why.
it's interesting because what you're talking about is this kind of romantic idea of going under and recording, and suddenly you can't hear anything, and you realize that it's talk about immersive noise, really noise from every angle. It's just mind-boggling, actually, how loud, and it's really destructive. But out of sight, out of mind, right? Like most people just see what you talk about, the blue sky, the ocean, and even the waves. It's all kind of visual that's on the surface. And so much is hidden in there, which kind of full circle brings you to going further down and now looking into what's buried under there. That's historical, that's also out of sight, out of mind, right? I mean, we're talking about so many bombs. And have you also tapped into a little bit into the internet network going down there, the cables, the communication cables? That must be something that crosses over, no?
This crosses over, but I didn't went so much into that, you know,
Right,
because
right. Next project.
no, but it's also like it does crosses. Like for instance, for sure, they did lots of research in Baltic because Baltic is one of the most industrial oceans in the sense it goes beyond the touristic industry. There is lots of windmills put into the sea. So before you build the windmill, you have to do the research of the ground. You can't do it on the bomb, you know. You cannot
Right.
build it up there and so on. So there is lots of this kind of infrastructure, which was kind of prompting also the area. So the science kind of did benefit from it because, you know, through this, they got like better funding and better possibilities to do that. Definitely there is some, definitely it's lots of crossing in all these kind of different underwater industries. You know, there is also big time debate still about the underwater mining because, you know, like in the land mining, we kind of reach with some resources limits, you know. So now there is this idea, look, there is all this 70% of the earth which is covered with the waters. Let's look into that. So of course there comes with lots of problematics that, you know, we don't even think about it, you know, how loud it will be, you know, and we both know the sound travels wider and stronger in the in water, you know, 5 to 7 times longer, you know, and stronger. Depends, of course, of the physical density and so on. The acidification of the oceans is anyway changing the sonic representation of sounds, which is confusing many mammals, and like lots of whales, they have to change their frequencies, and it will take time with generations to do that. Because the acidic ocean will have definitely different physical properties than the one which we have now. And
So
also this blue, you know, which we used to it is changing the greenery tonalities. So that's also something which is interesting to think about. But yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but the bombs, they must leach some chemicals. Have you looked into that? I mean,
there is a big problematic about this. It's like a special chemical munition because, you know, they dropped, like for Baltic, the numbers are quite out there, but I can say that they dropped 1.5 million tons of munitions, you know?
Oh my God, are you
But
talking about those numbers?
yeah. And then, but then the chemical, the chemical munition, this is like these master gases or gases which they have been used
Right.
in concentration camps and so on. They have been around 40,000 tons that we know.
That we know.
Big numbers, as well as also there was the idea that they will bring all these munitions to the deeper waters of North Sea, but somehow, when people had on their boats such a big amount of munition, they have been dumping them before already. So there is lots of it in Gdansk region. There's lots of it about Barholt Island and some other hot points, which they even pointed out on the cartography, when you're sailing, because when we have been sailing with this star boat around the Baltic Sea, you could see on the chart chemical munition dumping ground, don't do anchor or something. So,
Oh God.
so when I was on the boat, we didn't do these experiments in this way. So they have been, scientific crew had their own mission to finish up. So for me, it was just like conceptually and physically be interesting to be in that region. And then through being there, and as we had also one of the stopovers in Sopot, which is the sister city of Gdansk, I contacted these guys, because, when I was on the boat, I was reading lots of scientific papers, just to understand what is happening, to understand these numbers, to understand what is out there. And I came across in most of the articles, Jacek Baldowski was one of the co-authors or writers, or, so then I contacted him and he opened to me the whole network of scientists working on that, because year after they invited me to take part in their conference / they call it workshop, when they organized it in Malta. So there was like people from university, from Hawaii and from all over the world coming together.
Wow.
To present the research, but it was also wider. It wasn't only scientists working on the chemistry, there was also archaeologists. It was like very interdisciplinary, because working with the oceanic situations, you need to be interdisciplinary to be able even to arrive specific point, like
that's right.
Great RUV drivers, drivers which they're driving this underwater drones, they have to be very well trained to understand how to navigate this in this otherness of 3D world of the ocean. So I dropped a bit further up, but just to say that, for me, just being there, and I was doing lots of hydrophone recordings, for instance, just to have this kind of sonic space of the space which is above these munitions gave me already some guidelines, I could say, how to navigate it further. And it's the sonic atmosphere, which is your project.
That's right.
The atmosphere of the sound, anyway, thinking and talking about, it's like what it gives this kind of spaces, no?
Yeah, no, it's really fantastic how you can open this world and how welcoming scientists can be, which a lot of times artists think it's completely closed, but it takes persistence and passion, and the scientists share that, and they're really open to having an artist there. So did they see your new project, or did you share it with them? Yes, of course. They must have loved it.
Yeah, like actually with it was very lucky coincidence, like that Matthias Brenner, one of the scientists who is working actually on the topic which you asked me the question before, and then
It's okay. That's how talking goes.
exactly. So yeah, anyway, sharing stories, no?
Yeah.
So when working with Matthias, he really generously shared with me all his research about how this chemical leakage is represented in the body of the flatfish and some specific oysters. Also, which they are mostly seabed animals living around this kind of areas, you know? And there is quite striking numbers of how common the cancer in their liver is.
Oh boy.
Because they're living much nearer to that areas than the ones which they have in comparison, which they are not in the areas of that. So this kind of knowledge and this kind of representation I used in one of the first exhibitions, which was then shown, it was shown actually in Paris in Centre Quatre, because it was an exhibition from 40 artists, which we have been on the residency on Tara. And this exhibition is now traveling, also it's just finished, and it's traveling now to, and it will be shown in Nice at the Ocean Biennale, and it's a combination of the Foundation Tara and TB21 Foundation. They are building up one bigger exhibition, which will be part of the UN conference on of the Ocean Decade. So I do deeply hope that there will be also some people coming there, and that with science, that with all this kind of art science, we can also speak to the legislations, because, you know, people which they will be present on this UN conference will be mostly policymakers, which I think is also all artists and scientists have a bit of struggle how to speak to and reach out to that there would be bigger impact done. And the second part of the project was just shown now in with the focus on Adriatic Sea. And I was absolutely excited that Jacek Baldowski had time to join us. So he was then representing the situations in the Baltic. We spoke about Adriatic and also what could be done in Adriatic, that there would be initiative to work more on this kind of not only cleanup, but even understanding that there is lots of this there, because there is more and more divers, and with, you know, diving industry is rising up, you know, so also this kind of recreational divers, it's more people doing this than in 60s when Jacques Cousteau was like, and his team was like tweeting the equipment still to be even able to do that, no? So, and more people are diving, more people see this kind of stuff, you know, so there's always this kind of question, how to bring this complex topic to the wider audience without making it too scandalous.
Yeah. So that brings up a question that I've been asking myself. We both, and many artists who we know and don't know, have been so passionately working to make our art science projects raise awareness, right? And we could hands down say that thousands of people have seen our work, and I don't see any change. I just see it worse. And so I'm really starting to wonder if it's even possible to raise awareness, because it's just getting worse. I don't think we made any difference. And when I talk to scientists, they feel the same way, that since the 70s, they've been raising red flags about the, you know, all the different types of pollutions, all the possibilities, facts, figures, the entire thing. And nobody's listening, you know, it's just, or if they hear it, it doesn't matter, or people are aware, but, you know, whoever's making the decisions, the motivations are so different and so short-term thinking. So, how do you feel about that? Do you think we actually make a difference with our works?
It's a very good question. And honestly, I really try to avoid to say that I'm activist or something like this, because I'm not. I do research the topics which they are a bit more problematic through the human perspective, and how we kind of navigate with this kind of complexities of our domination of the, or our idea, or our, I think we have to have steps back, you know? I think that what happens, we are taking ourselves too serious in the way that we think that we are the dominated force.
Oh, that's for sure. That's for sure.
And yes, there is representation of plastics and our leftovers, especially after the Industrial Revolution. We will definitely leave some mark on this planet, you know? And we are very good in exhausting all these kind of old sources, and you know, like we like to pump dinosaurs, you know, to be able to navigate our progress, you know, and progress and innovation are really oversold, I think. So in this context, you know, if we put ourselves in this context, yes, there is this problem that I also speak a lot with scientists, you know, or people which they're passionate about this kind of situations that are happening, that nobody wants to hear us, you know? And then we all talk to each other about this.
Exactly.
Kind of resonating at each other. But then on the other hand, you know, like I'm still hopeful that at least, you know, if there is at least one person changing the way how they think about the aquatic situations, or, you know, when they, for instance, a few years ago, we did some research about the pharmaceutical pollutions in the oceans and seas, you know, with Gino Šutić, one colleague from Ur Institute from Dubrovnik. So with him, we spoke always like if we will bring at least one or two people to rethink, you know, which kind of pills they eat and how to navigate with that, you know, and so on, we can change a bit, you know, it's not a lot. But it's a tiny drop in this kind of changes. But definitely, you know, all this idea that if we are all recycling, everything will be better. It will not be better because we are not the problem. The problem are big corporations which they are running big games, you know, and somebody who runs big games, of course, for them economically is not interesting to change some things which we know how to be done. So all these kind of big shifts will have to happen sooner or later because the economy will crash, you know. That's why it's this kind of hunt for this kind of new green solutions.
Right.
And there is more and more people knocking on doors of arts also in the general way, like in Europe. You know, I'm coming from European context, you know, and I'm many times, my artworks are many times supported through different European funding. So here in the frame of that, they're really trying to push this kind of agenda of innovation, of understanding this kind of context even, no? But I think that, you know, if there will not be changes on the global level in the sense of like understanding.
That's it. That's it. That's the key. That's the key. We have to think of ourselves as a planetary community because it's also interconnected. I mean, oceans, rivers, everything is this kind of big system. And as once I remember we were talking and you were saying there's all this like movement ahead with green and there's funds and then war starts and all of it just stops. Like it just stops, like we don't even think about it anymore. And that taps right into what you're looking at now. So in a way, by excavating these bombs or bringing it to our attention, it really makes me take a deep breath because once again, we're seeing this kind of destruction start taking place. But this time, I think you would agree, actually, when you're talking about noise and the pitch is getting higher and higher and more intense, it's so clear that natural system will just slam us. I mean, there's just no way. It's just,
already.
it's already here.
Already.
It's already here, and we're still not noticing we're making the pitch even higher. And so it's not like
All
you
over
get
here, you know, it's like wherever we speak, you know, with whomever I speak, you know, you asked me before if I see changes on the Adriatic. In the sea, per se, not, but I see the changes in the climate, you know. You know,
sure.
like, I'm now 50. When I was a child, the winters, they have been long and white with lots of snow. No, they are
Especially
short and
Slovenia.
warm. I know they're short and warm, and if there is a 1 day of snow, we are all excited because it happens more as a exotic event than the normal winter condition.
Wait, this is for Slovenia you're talking
Yeah,
about?
I'm talking about Slovenia, you know.
That's
So
amazing because that's my memory too. It's just Slovenia is where you go skiing, is where it snow is for a long time. Sure. Yeah,
up
no,
in
we're
hills
really
still, but you know, like in the cities and so on, is not anymore. And this is one of the things, you know. There is more and more floods all over the world, you know. There is more and more fires, which we experienced in LA,
oh my
devastation,
God,
you
yes.
know.
Yes.
There is more and more hurricanes, you know,
That's
it's
right.
acceleration and it accelerates quickly. And just recently, and this is something interesting, I was not so aware of that project, like territorial agency is working on kind of rethinking the graphs of the big acceleration, you know, and it's something really interesting to look into it also, you know, which they are presenting, this kind of, these graphs are representing how quickly things are changing in the last 50 years, and the
Yes,
graph
the curve is just
are
like straight up. I know.
exactly,
I've seen that. Yeah, it's insane.
and it's just like something which is so insane that it's really sometimes hard to grasp. And yes, I have the same questions like you have, like how, what do we have to do that we change the brains or minds of people which they are running the economy? But I think how much I see now and what is happening, you know, it's also like the nearer are we, you know, like living in the peaceful times, it's always an illusion, you know, we are always coming
That's true.
from war into the war, you know. I was growing up when the Yugoslavia was falling apart. So Slovenia was lucky in the way that we haven't been long time into the war area, but we have been living next to it for a while. And I see always this, you know, that nearer the proximity of something is to us, more we are aware of it, you know, because there is war in Sudan and places which they are a bit more far from us. So this kind of geolocation gives you more empathy for the situation which is nearer to you.
Sure.
Want it or not, you know, that's our human nature like that, you
That's
know.
right.
And I'm not saying this is good or bad, or I'm not judging. I'm just like saying that this
Sure.
is
No, that's the way it is. That's
observing, you know.
yeah.
And for me, definitely, you know, like, especially when we speak about ecology, you know, and then we will do all the sustainability and we will do everything in the best possible ways. And then somebody drops bomb next to you. What is inside of that? You know, it's like,
Exactly. Like there it all goes, you know, at the moment.
yeah, and you know, and we are done, you know, it's like next 50 years, you
Yeah.
just have to
That's right.
do it. And you know, not everything bomb is just a bomb, you know, there is also
No,
lots
of
of
course, many
side.
different ways, of course. And it's so related to sound, so related to sound. And the culture is so visual that they're just deaf to just listen. And that, I mean, think about the pandemic. So as fast as it can accelerate into crazy noise that's just ready to explode, it can go the other way. And the pandemic was amazing what happened with the oceans in particular. So obvious when everything just stopped and how fast nature just went, oh, okay, we can swim here, we can move here. And even people, you know, they either went crazy or they just really took advantage of quiet and just this everything slowed down. It was such an opportunity to shift and to learn from that. And instead, it went to the total opposite of what we could have learned from that period of 3, 4 years of just everything stopping. It's really sad, actually, how we're not learning, and then it has to keep hitting us on our head until we finally, you know, wake up maybe or just disappear. I don't know. I'm not sure that we're raising awareness. I'm thinking more of it now as we're documenting. We're documenting moments and bringing it to the attention to everybody to not necessarily remember, but it's a memory that's an experience. That's not photographs and the usual documentation, but this is how it felt to dive down. This is what we were hearing. This is what was going on. And the same is with scientists. I mean, no matter how much, in the end, it's just facts that are being documented, and one day may be useful, but right now I just think we are making no difference. And that's not to say that we wouldn't stop our work, but just in a way being realistic. This is our experience, this is what we're seeing. We're not romanticizing it. This is the reality of it. The noise is the reality that people just don't hear. And that's what I really appreciate about your work, that you keep diving. You keep diving, diving into it and recording it, and then, c'est la vie, right? The reality is the reality.
No, it's true, but also what I try to do is like, especially if we go back just to these sonic representations, and when I started to work on this project Aquatocene, which is about the underwater noise pollution, I saw that sometimes people don't read so much what they will come to listen. They just saw like, ocean sounds.
Nice.
And
Very,
it
very
was
nice.
very interesting that people have been on the end quite shocked how industrial the sound was.
Yes, yes.
In my performances, this have been like mostly noise performances, because I was representing all these sounds of all these boats and all this kind of sonic
Yes.
presence of Earth's human in the oceans. Of course, it was also some of the natural sounds.
Yes.
But mostly I was using the sound which I documented, the sound which I recorded.
Yes.
And then many times I also invited some of the oceanographers or people working in the ocean just to share the stage with them also. So first was the performance, and then was the discussion, because I think through this, at least we can open the questions. And many people have been just like, really like, is this actually true? Or you have like changed, Like, and I was like, no,
Yes.
I was like, this is the real sound which I recorded.
Yes.
That's the thing. And yeah, we always forget it, everything, I think also computers that we are talking up in this moment, every part of it was in one moment in time on one of the boats, in one of the containers. You're shipping everything.
Everything.
And the shipping industry is so huge, It's so crazy to think that, my one
so
ship was
crazy.
in this kind of, because of, I think that there was like this moment when this boat was stuck in the Suez. And
Oh yes, oh yes, oh my God, I remember that.
Or some random thing,
I remember
and it was
that.
just like, it's interesting how one situation, like how fragile our, so, like we like to be so advanced and so technologically driven, and everybody understand, like we're so developed, but then like one boat is stuck and we are all in panic, this was quite
the Suez Canal was such a great illustration of networks and how you block one and it just throws everything off. Amazing. Now there's many different blocks and it's totally changed. The system is changing, definitely.
But you know why they like to go into the Suez, and it's the change of the climate change. Is like at the African, at the South Africa, on the end there is like lots of rock waves, the waves which they're really huge, they're clashing. So of course boats, they don't want to go there, so they prefer to go through the Suez Canal, no? It's safe traveling.
Got it.
And it's also so interesting to see, okay, so somebody got stuck, so now everybody had to go there through the
waves, through the dangerous, yeah, interesting.
And there will be more and more dangerous waves.
So yes. You're right. And also for air travel, right? So for air travel, that the oceans affect the air affects and then there's the solar maximum, which we are in right now, which also affects everything. So this kind of larger cosmic picture is really important to keep in mind. And really, in the end, or now, to me, figuring out ways where smaller communities can have access to some of this knowledge for health, to keep healthy in these crazy times, because that's really what we need to watch out for. Health, not of our human bodies only, but also of animals, fish, other creatures that are really suffering from all the noise and all the pollution. And that I think is a contribution of this kind of work, because even though it raises awareness and doesn't change the bigger picture of these large mega corporations that are they're on a track. It's like taking a huge boat and trying to turn it around. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be a huge effort, and quite possibly a natural disaster will finally put a stop to it, because I think
Natural
humans
disasters are giving us the temples.
they're warning us it's coming, right? So then how do you survive, and how do you stay healthy, and how do you communicate when the cell phones are out and all the sounds that you need of support and systems are down, right? I mean, we experienced that during the last LA fires. Everything was down. So you had no access to any of the sounds that you need. You just heard things from a distance. And all that toxic stuff is moved right into the ocean. But again, out of sight, out of mind. The beach is closed, but we don't really know what's going on, right? And this is where it is, you know what? Don't jog on the sea side right now. You know what I mean? Like, you see people jogging on the ocean and you just go, what? No, don't jog on the beach. It's toxic. You could die. So just little things like that, I think, is what we can do now with our work, and just have a community of like-minded people, because the waves are too strong. They're way too strong.
They're strong, but we should not forget that we all enter into this kind of like aquatic environments because of this special love.
Of course.
And this is this feeling of, you know, like oceanic love that
it's our birthplace, right? It's our birthplace. It's our life. It's life, really. That's what it is. And to attack life like that mindlessly, it's really sad, actually. It's very sad. Even diving, you know, one of the things that shocked me when I started really listening and recording is how much noise divers make. I kind of didn't understand that, but it's like really noisy, the breathing and the moving. The probably scares the fish, like, what is that?
But you know, we are like, you know, we are the curiosity for them in this kind of context, you know, like but yeah, it's very present also. But you remember when we went to snorkel in Galapagos, you know?
How could I forget? That was like a dream that I have to
and this is like
scratch
really
my head. Was it real?
Because I remember when we spoke with Blanca de la Torre that she was telling that she feels that this is such a limited but unlimited. It's limited but it's unlimited, you know? Like all the animals there, they have been kind of used to have these kind of groups of people coming to snorkel around them. I know the turtles, they have been like irritated, you know, like, okay, go away. I need to go to my spot, whatever I want to do there. And, you know, so, you know, but on the one hand, which I was thinking a lot lately also about this Galapagos was also because of this kind of protected zone. Because there is area where, you know, there's not lots of fishing going on. It's very protected. It's like under the specific rules. And I just came recently across one really interesting fact that, you know, in high seas, there is more protected areas, but in the, like in the high seas, there is not so much protected areas actually, you know, because it's international waters. Protected areas are in the inset of the geolocations of specific country.
Right.
And I think that, you know, like as there is like, for instance, in US, there is so many natural parks.
Mhm.
And people love to go there, and nature is thriving there, and we have this kind of interesting connection. So if there would be more of this happening in the oceanic areas would be really nice, because, you know, for me being at Galapagos, I think it was first time that I experienced this kind of really pristine, but it's also romantic. I know that, I'm aware of that, but this kind of pristine nature where the animals are still very present, and, you know, that we have to leave to the boat at 6 o'clock, not be at the beach then anymore, to not irritate them and so on. So this kind of way of being with each other could be interesting to just get back to it, you know, to somehow understand. It gives you this kind of idea that, yeah, there's still some hope, but then, you know, then you go to some other industrial area where they are like pumping oil and you are just gone, you know, or the idea and illusion about this kind of beauty of coexistence is just gone, you know, like it's just like under this
In the
fatty,
instant.
oily areas, it's like really impossible to breathe, no?
Yeah. But you're right. There's something to be said about these small kind of bubbles, for lack of a better word, even though everything is interconnected, and of course in water even more. It still is helpful to have some kind of areas that have some protection, at least for people to experience. One of the strongest experience for me in the Galapagos was the lack of fear in the animals. Normally, when animals see you, they just run, right? And there, the animals, the fish, every animal around, they just kind of look at you and you look at them and just moving on. This was pretty
We
cool.
just say hi to each other, yeah.
So, yeah, that would be the way to go, and to also bring children into it so they experience it and grow up with that memory. I think those memories are getting lost to a lot of kids. Do you find that children really enjoy your installations?
Depends which one, you know, like this one with carpet, they do, because they can lie on it and it's much more, you know. It's not so fragile, because many times I like to use glass, which is ultra fragile. So
That is true, actually.
depends of that, but, you know, in general, you know, I think that kids have this kind of possibility to read very complex artworks without any fear, you know, of
That's right.
entering,
Judgment, yeah.
you know. And it's like they like to hear things, you know. I know that with this noise pollution, they really enjoyed the crickets, you know. Like they told me it's crickets, but it's actually shrimps, you know.
Ah, that's right.
Like they could relate to the sound, you know. It's like because the shrimps and crabs, as you know, they're one of the loudest animals in the seas, you know. They are very present in the aquatic sonic patterns, you know. And it's like, and the pastry of the sound, which is like in the waters, can be very beautiful also, no?
Absolutely. Did you study music, or did you study art? Where did you start with your art studies, or
So
sound art studies, I should say?
art was sculpturing.
Right.
So very physical, very 3D, you know, like I was studying here at university in Slovenia, at Ljubljana's university, in the time when it was a bit more in the old-fashioned style, I would say. So we have been going through all this, making sculptures, body drawing, so on, which on the end of the day, it's a active, recreational thing of being, how to be aware, you know. It does teaches you how to be aware of the things around
Well,
yourself.
it's spatial.
It's observational. It's
It's dealing
spatial.
with space, and it doesn't surprise me at all, actually, that in a way now you're doing sound sculptures. You're sculpting with sound, with noise, with different lights. It's not surprising at all, actually. I think it was a very good basis for the work you're doing. And you're in a
Yeah,
way returning to a lot of pieces you make with glass and the sculptural space.
I try to use the crafts which I kind of learn. And
Yes, yeah.
on the other hand, when I was a child, I was going through the music school, so I did finish 6 years of the piano. So there is like, so I have some, I call it basic because I would never compare myself as a trained musicians is of course
Right,
different.
right.
But then composing, when I started to do like videos, it both came together because I really wanted
Yes,
to have some ambience. But then sometimes in some of the projects, the ambience started to be the main thing. So I have projects which they are mostly sound projects, and then the visual is the
yes.
support element, or sometimes even not existing with it. Or the storytelling is very important for me also. So I developed one piece with some singers from Ireland where they're singing in this Shannon Irish.
Yeah, it's a beautiful piece. Yeah.
So it's like
Cool.
depends, I really try to bring different points together to, not to kind of help to enter in this kind of more empathic or emotional way of being present and documenting, as you said, but in the way that it's kind of resonating also, not only in the factual level, but also kind of bring some emotions out of us,
Yeah, you're working with the human experience, basically, and you're bringing the hidden worlds, the underworlds of oceans and other things. Who knows where you're going to go? It's not limited. It's all connected. And it's really beautiful work, Robertina. I always feel so close to you and totally get it when I'm in your spaces. So I really appreciate getting a little more of a sense, and I'm sure people listening to this too. And we'll continue our conversations because there's also pieces we can dig into more. This is more a sense of how we see a larger picture that goes outside of the art world in a way, but more about your experience, your human experience that you shared with others.
I
And
think, Victoria, this sounds like a great compliment coming from you,
oh, come on.
I was always
That's
such a
very
huge
sweet.
fan. I was such a huge fan, and I was so excited when I was introduced to you, like in the
Oh, that's so
you know.
sweet. Thank you so
And
much.
since then, we kind of built up not only the curiosity for the same topics, but also friendship, and this means a lot, It's
Hey,
like
look, there's, once we were snorkeling in the Galapagos, that was it. That was it. Sharing the same room on the ship. Yeah, very cool. So lots of love to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Victoria, and it was really lovely to speak with you. I hope that the audience or the listeners, they will have some thoughts, or that they will also.
They will definitely get a deeper insight into the complexity of your work and what you're trying to do, and appreciate more the experience when they run into it. So take care, Robertina. Thank you so much.
Yes.